Today we sample the textbook definition of a tech demo. Or so I am told. I'm not quite sure about that. Let's dive into the HyperZone. This is HyperZone, released in 1991, September 1991 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System from HAL Laboratory. Roughly a month after the console's North American launch, is a third-person rail shooter where you control a little ship driving down these little tracks, and in some cases that is quite literal, shooting things coming your way and trying to avoid getting shot or crashing into things coming your way. You have two buttons to use, one to shoot and one to slow down, which can be useful at times, but if your ship starts moving too slowly, you'll start to take damage. Likewise, moving off the track will incur further damage, and if you suffer enough damage, you'll lose a life. Lose all your lives, and it's game over. No continues, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go directly to jail. Or the morgue in this case, whichever one works best. Now, there are segments of tracks that you could run over to repair your ship and restore some health, so long as you're not getting hammered at the same time. And the nice thing about HyperZone is that as you progress further into the game and your score gets higher, you eventually upgrade to better ships that have better weapons, including the ability to charge your shot, which helps against bosses. Your HUD even changes to reflect the new craft, which is a nice little detail. But just because your ship gets better doesn't mean the game gets easier. In fact, as you head deeper into the game's 8 zones, the challenge becomes increasingly overwhelming, further testing your hyperzoning skills to the limit, and if you beat the 8th and final hyperzone, which is just a boss rush really, it's back to the beginning, but now you have a fancy new ship to play with, so that's something I guessed on the second try. To call HyperZone a glorified tech demo is, well, on the one hand it's not that far off. The aim is to craft a game that would take advantage of the Super Nintendo's capabilities, the Mode 7, the scaling effects, all that wonderful stuff. Not quite sure it's a strong demonstration because you're not really doing much of anything here. You're mostly moving along a straight line at a gingerly pace, occasionally swerving from one lane to another, but nothing in terms of sharp turns or anything truly overwhelming. If you wanted a better showcase of what SNES was capable of, F-Zero and Pilot Wings were right there from the word go. You could not ask for better tech demos of Mode 7 than those two games. Now, setting that aside, is HyperZone a good game? It's alright. It's a rail shooter of sorts, and a fairly basic one that's pretty simple to understand and grasp. You only have two buttons to play with, and every button on that SNES gamepad will either shoot or brake. As in, slow the ship down, not actually brake. But if you slow down enough, you could eventually break the ship, so... But you can even brake or shoot with the L and R buttons, which is somewhat akin to a first-person shooter control setup, which is somewhat forward-thinking in a way. Other than that though, there's not much to the game. It's neat that you get new ships after scoring enough points, but they're all just slight upgrades over your last one. HyperZone's gameplay tends to be on the shallow end of things. It's a fairly short run and not quite as complex or as intricate as a Space Harrier or even a World Runner. But what it does well enough, and once you get a feel for it, it can be a fun time that will occasionally double as a rude awakening with its troublesome bits, such as needing to switch lanes and take damage as a result, or dodging hazards in tight spaces, or the rare instance of poor depth perception, which is always fun with these type of games. But these are seldom an issue in the long haul because for the most part HyperZone handles scaling and depth more than adequately. Also helps that the general speed of the game isn't too quick, which might be seen as a detriment gameplay-wise, but also keeps the scaling smooth and not quite janky. HyperZone has some varied backgrounds, such as it is, for the off-track portions that come across as somewhat psychedelic in a sense, though I will say that the final zone of the game is probably the sweetest looking stage in the game, with the streaking effects and all that. That's actually pretty cool. And while I like some of the ships that you fly and also the matching HUDs, the grunts you blast through are just kinda sorta meh. Except for the Super Famicom button pad boss, that's actually quite adorable, to be honest. As for audio, you've got suitably stocky laser blast and punchy explosive sounds, complemented with a wide variety of tunes ranging from smooth listening ambience to a bit of pseudo-techno funk to the dreadfully dull boss music that ends each stage. Goes all over the place in tone, but it's good background noise and you've got a unique theme for each zone, so it's fine. Overall, HyperZone it's okay. A fine enough shooter that's not overly exciting nor groundbreaking exactly, but otherwise not terribly offensive nor poorly executed. It's one of those games that you'll play on a rainy afternoon and get some mild enjoyment out of, before promptly forgetting about it and moving on to something else, which tends to be par for the course for a lot of a console's early releases. All in all, HyperZone is good old harmless shooting fun, and that's good enough for me.